The clock struck 2, and I jolted awake to the sound of my phone buzzing, the glow slicing through the darkness. Emma said, "You need to know the truth, come outside now." My chest tightened as her words dug deep. I staggered out of bed, confused and breathless, the air thick with dread. I pulled on my hoodie and rushed downstairs, each step echoing louder than my thoughts. The night air slapped against my skin as I opened the door where Emma stood trembling. She said, "I saw something tonight, and you won't forgive me for holding it back." Her voice cracked, breaking like thin glass. My heart pounded as I whispered, "What did you see?" Her eyes darted away, glistening with secrets too heavy to hold. The silence between us felt unbearable, and I felt myself drowning in it. Then Emma said, "Your best friend betrayed you, and I've been hiding it." The word betrayed tore through me like ice in my veins. My mind raced with denial, fear, and suspicion, all colliding at once. At that moment I felt the world tilt, and nothing would be the same again. I froze under the weight of her words, my thoughts racing through years of friendship that now felt tainted. I asked, "What do you mean betrayed?" Emma shook her head, refusing to meet my eyes. The silence grew heavier, every second suffocating. My mind replayed every laugh, every secret, every moment with Mark, my best friend. The idea of him betraying me seemed impossible, but Emma's trembling told another story. I said, "If you know something, say it now." Emma's lips parted, but her voice faltered, as if the truth would burn her alive. The night air pressed harder against us, amplifying the tension. I clenched my fists, desperate for answers, desperate to breathe. Emma said, "It isn't just one mistake, it's been going on for weeks." My stomach dropped as if the ground had given way. The world blurred around me, leaving only her shaking voice. I stepped closer, demanding, "Tell me who." She flinched, covering her mouth, as though even speaking his name would betray her loyalty. The silence burned until I whispered, "Mark." Her eyes widened, and that was all the confirmation I needed. Rage surged through me, but so did sorrow, twisting like two knives in my chest. The street seemed to shrink, pulling us into a world of betrayal. I muttered, "He promised me forever, Emma." My voice cracked, sounding foreign to my ears. Emma whispered, "I wanted to tell you earlier, but I couldn't." The night air felt poisonous, sinking into my lungs. The weight of secrets unspoken pressed between us. Every memory of Mark now appeared broken, jagged shards cutting through my heart. The betrayal no longer seemed distant. It lived in the air, in Emma's trembling presence, in the silence wrapping around me like chains. I shouted louder than I intended, "Why didn't you warn me?" My voice echoed against the empty houses, a raw sound tearing from inside me. Emma winced, tears sliding down her cheeks. She said, "Because I didn't want to break you." My body shook, not just from the cold but from the avalanche of betrayal. Mark, the one I trusted most, had shattered the foundation of my life, and Emma had become the reluctant messenger. I stared at the dark street, feeling the world collapse. The night that began with a buzzing phone had become the night everything I believed in died. The night blurred into memories that clung tighter than the cold. I remembered being 10, chasing Mark through fields behind my house, laughter echoing like music. We had sworn to never leave each other's side. Mark said, "We're brothers forever." I believed him then, more than anything else in the world. Our scraped knees and shared secrets stitched us together like thread and needle. Emma was there too, sitting on the swings, cheering us on with her bright smile. She said, "You two are unstoppable." I felt the warmth of belonging in her voice. Childhood was pure, unbroken, and glowing with promise. Now, standing in the cold night years later, those golden memories cut sharper than any betrayal. The bond that once felt eternal now trembled on the edge of collapse. High school came fast, and with it, late nights filled with reckless joy. Mark and I lay on the hood of his beat-up car, watching stars blur overhead. He whispered, "Promise me we'll never drift apart." I laughed, punching his arm lightly, and said, "Never." Emma leaned against the car, sipping soda, teasing us both. She said, "You two sound like an old married couple." Her laughter rang like bells, pure and untroubled. In that moment, the world felt endless, and our bond felt unbreakable. Every worry about the future dissolved under the glow of those streetlights. But years later, I realized those same promises would turn into the very weapons that shattered us. College was where the late-night talks became lifelines. Mark and I sat in the dorm hallway, textbooks abandoned, pizza box open between us. He said, "We'll conquer everything together, careers, life, all of it." His words filled me with reckless hope. Emma, who had joined us later that night, rested her head against the wall and sighed. She said, "You two make me believe nothing can break you." I smiled, believing every word, feeling invincible with them by my side. Those nights were woven into me like threads of gold, threads I thought could never fray. Now, remembering them, I felt like I was holding ashes in my hands. Mark stood by me through my first heartbreak, the night I couldn't stop shaking. He grabbed my shoulder and said, "You're not alone, not now, not ever." His words were steady, anchoring me like a lighthouse in storm waves. Emma brought blankets and hot chocolate, sitting silently beside me, her presence louder than any words. She whispered, "We'll get you through this." I thought love between us all was unshakable, unbreakable. Their warmth felt like armor, and I wore it proudly, never imagining it would crack. But in the memory's glow, I now saw shadows lurking behind their kindness. I remembered the summer we all took a road trip, our laughter carried by the wind. Mark shouted from behind the wheel, "This is freedom, man!" I laughed so hard my stomach hurt, leaning out the window as fields blurred past. Emma sat in the back, hair flying, singing loudly to a song on the radio. She said, "This is our forever memory." I believed her, storing that moment deep inside my heart. The bond felt immortal, carved into time itself. But now, with Emma's trembling voice still echoing in my ears, those memories turned into cruel reminders of what I was losing. The first cracks appeared small, almost invisible. Mark stopped answering my late-night calls, brushing me off with excuses that felt rehearsed. I told myself he's busy, but doubt whispered otherwise. Emma noticed too, her eyes following him with quiet suspicion. "One evening," she said, "he wasn't where he told you he'd be." My chest tightened, denial louder than reason. I laughed it off, forcing a smile, but the seed of unease had already taken root. Every silence from Mark felt heavier, every glance at his phone sharper. Something between us was changing, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. Mark's laughter no longer felt shared. At gatherings he whispered with others, his words clipped when I joined. I said, "Everything good," and he replied too quickly, "Of course." His smile didn't reach his eyes. Emma caught my gaze across the room, worry written in her face. "Later," she said softly, "you feel it too, don't you?" I wanted to deny it, but my silence spoke louder. The bond that once held us close now stretched thin, threads threatening to snap. Every familiar gesture now felt strange, like watching a stranger wear Mark's face. The excuses grew. Mark canceled plans last minute, saying work ran late, though his clothes smelled of smoke and cheap perfume. I wanted to ask, but fear held my tongue. Emma urged, "Talk to him before it's too late." My heart battled between trust and suspicion, each night heavier than the last. I replayed his words in my mind, searching for cracks in his tone, signs of a lie. Every pause became proof, every glance an accusation. The friendship that once gave me strength now left me hollow, chasing shadows in the dark. Emma grew restless, torn between silence and truth. One night, she said, "He's not the same with you anymore." I snapped back, "Don't make this worse." Her lips pressed tight, but her silence screamed louder than words. I paced my room, walls closing in with every memory of Mark. His promises, his loyalty, all clashed with the emptiness he left me with. The person I once trusted most now felt like a stranger, a shadow slipping through cracks I couldn't close. My denial was breaking, and the truth loomed closer with every heartbeat. The distance grew unbearable. I caught Mark avoiding my eyes, laughing too loudly when I walked in. I asked, "What's going on?" He shrugged, saying, "Nothing, man." His tone was sharp, final. Emma watched the exchange, her silence carved with pity. The room felt colder, the friendship fragile and foreign. I realized then that betrayal wasn't sudden. It was slow, a sickness creeping beneath the surface. And now, I was watching it consume everything I thought unbreakable. I couldn't take the silence anymore. That night, I walked into the bar where Mark said he'd be working late. My chest hammered as I pushed open the door, music and chatter spilling out. Then I saw him, Mark, laughing too close to someone he shouldn't. His hand rested on Sarah's back, the very girl I had confessed I loved months ago. My throat tightened as the world blurred around me. Emma's warnings echoed in my head, cutting deeper with each breath. I whispered to myself, "No, this isn't real." But the truth was staring right at me, painted across his smile, etched in her laughter. The betrayal wasn't a rumor. It was alive, unfolding before my eyes. My knees nearly gave way as I gripped the doorway. Mark leaned closer, whispering something into Sarah's ear that made her blush. My stomach churned like acid. I remembered the night I told Mark, "She's the one, man, I swear." He had clapped my shoulder, smiling, "You've got this." Now that smile felt like poison. Emma appeared beside me, her expression tight with sorrow. She whispered, "This is what I tried to protect you from." My heart shattered, rage colliding with grief in a storm I could barely contain. The truth wasn't hidden anymore. It was flaunted, cruel, and undeniable. The noise of the bar faded until all I could hear was my own pulse, pounding like war drums. Mark looked up suddenly, his eyes locking with mine. His smile faltered, guilt flashing for a split second before he masked it with bravado. He said, "John, hey, didn't expect to see you here." His voice was too casual, too forced, as if nothing between us was breaking. Sarah shifted uncomfortably, her cheeks flushed, realizing what my presence meant. Emma's hand brushed mine, steadying me, but my world had already split open. The betrayal wasn't imagined, it was painted across their faces. I stepped forward, every movement heavy with betrayal. My voice shook as I said, "How long has this been going on?" The bar seemed to still, conversations fading as tension thickened. Mark's eyes narrowed, his mask cracking. He muttered, "It's not what it looks like." But the tremor in his tone betrayed him. Sarah lowered her gaze, shame burning across her cheeks. Emma whispered, "Please, not here," but it was too late. The lie had already shattered the illusion. The truth was naked, raw, and it burned hotter than fire. The silence stretched before Mark finally exhaled, his voice colder than I had ever heard. He said, "Fine. You weren't supposed to find out like this." My chest caved in, each word a hammer to my ribs. The years of laughter, loyalty, and trust collapsed under the weight of his betrayal. Emma gasped softly, tears sliding down her cheeks. Sarah whispered, "I'm sorry," her voice trembling. But no apology could fix the wound, now bleeding open. I felt my voice break as I said, "You betrayed me, Mark. You betrayed everything we ever were." The truth landed like a knife, sharp and irreversible. The bar hushed, its noise sinking under the weight of what was unraveling. My breath came ragged as I stepped forward, voice cracking like thunder. I shouted, "You lied to me, Mark. You looked me in the eye for years and swore loyalty." My fists trembled at my sides, nails cutting into my palms. Mark stood slowly, his chair scraping against the floor with a screech that stabbed the silence. His stare was sharp, pride burning where guilt should have lived. He said, "Don't act like you own me, John." The words shattered something inside me. Emma gripped my arm, whispering frantically, "Please, not like this, you'll regret it," but her plea couldn't reach the storm I carried. Sarah shifted uneasily, her gaze dropping, shame spreading across her face. The world seemed to tilt, leaving just the four of us, locked in the ruins of what used to be trust. The bar lights flickered, echoing the chaos inside me, and every memory of Mark's promises now twisted into sharp betrayal. The storm in me burst free, my voice sharp and raw. I trusted you with everything, Mark. Every secret, every dream, every piece of who I am. My chest heaved as the weight of betrayal pressed harder. Mark's lip curled into something between a sneer and a smirk. He said, "And maybe I was tired of living in your shadow, John. Maybe I was done being second." His words sliced through me, crueler than any blade. Emma gasped audibly, covering her mouth as tears welled in her eyes. She whispered, "No, not you too." Sarah wrapped her arms around herself, whispering, "Stop," but her voice was drowned in the thunder between us. My fists quivered, heart pounding so hard I thought it might split. The room was shrinking, collapsing into this moment where everything we had built cracked open. The laughter, the trust, the promises, all of it was ashes now, crumbling in the fire of his confession. I lurched forward, my rage spilling into words I couldn't hold back. "You stole everything from me, Mark. You tore apart the one thing I thought was unshakable." My voice shook the air as chairs scraped, people shrinking away from our storm. Mark's retort exploded, his voice deep and venomous. He said, "You never saw me, John. It was always about you. Your dreams, your voice, your story." His bitterness clawed into me, twisting every moment we'd ever shared into a lie. Emma's sob cut through the tension. She cried, "Please, stop this before it destroys you both." But her plea was drowned, swept away in our fire. Sarah pressed her hands over her face, her shoulders trembling as guilt consumed her. My heart felt like it was burning alive, flames licking through every vein, every memory. The friendship I thought eternal had rotted, leaving only this: two brothers turned enemies under the ruin of neon light. I staggered back, the fight draining into hollow pain. My chest heaved as if the air itself was too heavy to breathe. My voice cracked as I whispered, "We were brothers, Mark. You promised me forever." My words broke into silence that pressed like stone. For a heartbeat, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Guilt, fragile and fleeting. Before it hardened again, he said coldly, "Not anymore." The words echoed, louder than his shouting ever could. Emma's face twisted in despair, her voice shaking as she asked, "How could you do this to him? To us?" Her tears reflected the dim light, glowing like shards of glass. Sarah sat frozen, staring at the floor, her shame an anchor she couldn't lift. My knees weakened, but I held myself upright, the weight of betrayal digging deeper with every passing second. The friendship that once defined me was gone, and the person who destroyed it stood right in front of me. My vision blurred as tears fought to escape, but fury still fueled my voice. "You didn't just betray me, Mark. You betrayed every version of us we could have been, every future we dreamed of." My words trembled, but carried the weight of everything lost. Mark opened his mouth, but silence swallowed him whole. His lips pressed tight, his pride a brittle mask stretched over guilt. Emma sobbed openly now, her voice breaking as she whispered, "This isn't who you are. This isn't who we were." Sarah's voice cracked as she whispered, "I'm sorry." But the words dissolved, powerless against the ruin around us. My hands trembled, my heart pounding like war drums, yet beneath the rage, emptiness stretched wider than ever before. The confrontation was over, but its destruction was absolute. Nothing stood anymore. Not laughter, not trust, not love. Just wreckage. Just silence. Just betrayal. I stumbled out of the bar, the neon glow behind me fading into cold night air. My legs felt heavy, each step dragging like chains. I muttered to myself, "It's over. Everything's over." The street was empty, silent, except for my ragged breaths. Emma followed, her voice trembling, "John, please wait." I didn't stop, couldn't stop, because if I looked at her, I'd see the truth written all over her tears. I pressed my hands to my face, heat and cold battling on my skin. Memories crashed against me like waves, golden moments turning to ash. Mark's voice, Sarah's laughter, Emma's warnings, all mixed into chaos I couldn't escape. My heart was a hollow drum, pounding with nothing left to hold on to. I whispered, "We're strangers now." The truth seared me deeper than his betrayal itself. The bond was dead, and I was left with ruins. The night stretched endlessly, every breath colder than the last. I sat on the curb, staring at the cracks in the asphalt, as if answers were hidden there. Emma crouched beside me, silent at first, then whispered, "I didn't want this for you." Her voice broke, her tears falling softly onto the ground between us. I turned to her, my eyes raw, and said, "You knew. You carried it. Why didn't you tell me sooner?" She shivered, pulling her arms tighter around herself. "Because I thought maybe he'd stop. I thought maybe he'd come back to who he was." My chest burned, grief colliding with anger, but I couldn't lash out at her. She had been caught in the same storm, a witness helpless to change its path. The silence grew again, and I realized no words could sew together what had been torn apart. I returned home near dawn, the sky painted in muted gray. My room felt colder than the streets, filled with ghosts of laughter that once lived here. I sat on the edge of my bed, head bowed, fists pressed into my thighs. My voice cracked as I whispered to the empty walls, "He was supposed to be my brother." The silence mocked me, heavier than any answer. Emma stood in the doorway, hesitant, her frame fragile in the pale light. She said softly, "You don't have to carry this alone." Her words hung in the air, kind but powerless against the wreckage in my chest. I wanted to believe her, to let her shoulder some of the weight, but all I felt was hollow. Trust was broken, and I no longer knew where to place it. The light creeping through the blinds didn't feel like morning, it felt like aftermath. The days blurred together, every moment haunted by echoes of what had been. I passed by the places we once laughed, now poisoned with memory. The park bench where Mark and I made plans, the diner where we swore on forever, they all felt like tombstones. Emma walked with me one evening, the air heavy with silence. She finally said, "It's okay to be angry. It's okay to break." I stopped walking, staring at the fading sunset, and replied, "But what if I can't put myself back together?" Her eyes softened, but she didn't answer. She couldn't. The truth was, I wasn't sure I wanted to. Rage was easier than hope. Grief was safer than trust. And yet, her presence kept me from sinking completely. For the first time I realized healing wasn't peace. It was survival. The resolution was not forgiveness. It was not peace. It was the quiet acceptance that the life I once knew had ended. I sat alone in my room one night, staring at the photo of Mark and me taped to the wall. Two boys laughing, arms slung around each other, believing in forever. My chest tightened as I reached up and pulled it down, the tape tearing like flesh. Emma's voice echoed in my memory, "You'll survive this," but survival felt like ashes. I whispered to the empty room, "I'm not who I was, and I never will be again." My hands shook as I tore the photo in half, letting the pieces fall to the floor. Betrayal had taken more than a friend. It had taken the version of myself who believed in unbreakable bonds. All that remained was someone colder, wiser, scarred. The morning after felt unreal, as though I'd stepped into a version of life I didn't recognize. I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, the face of a stranger looking back at me. My eyes were rimmed red, not just from tears, but from the weight of betrayal. I whispered, "Who am I now without him?" The silence answered with a cruel reminder. I wasn't the boy who believed in unshakable bonds anymore. Emma knocked softly at the door, her voice gentle but tired. "John, you need to eat something." I didn't reply. My stomach was hollow, but not from hunger. It was emptiness. I pressed my palms against the sink, veins pulsing beneath my skin. The mirror showed me a man scarred by broken trust, and I hated that Mark's shadow lived in every fracture. The truth wasn't only what he did, it was that he had changed who I was forever. I tried walking through town, past familiar places, but everything felt poisoned. The diner where Mark and I once shared pancakes at 3 a.m. was now just a graveyard of laughter. I passed it quickly, heart pounding, memories clawing at me. Emma walked beside me in silence, her presence heavy with pity I couldn't bear. I muttered, "He stole more than my trust. He stole every memory we built." She looked at me with sad eyes, but said nothing. Because what could she say? Words couldn't erase the scar. The streets buzzed with strangers, but I felt invisible, carrying grief no one else could see. Betrayal wasn't just an act. It was a ghost that followed me, breathing down my neck. I shoved my hands into my hoodie pocket and whispered, "I'm not the same. And I never will be." The truth hit harder when spoken aloud. One evening, I sat at the park where we once swore on forever, the bench still carved with our initials. I traced the letters with shaking fingers, the grooves sharp against my skin. I whispered, "You promised me, Mark," though no one was there to hear. Emma sat a few feet away, her silence deliberate, giving me space to grieve. The sky burned orange, fading into indigo, a cruel reminder that days end no matter how much we beg them to stay. My chest ached, not with rage this time, but with mourning for what I lost. I wasn't just mourning a friend, I was mourning who I used to be. Tears finally spilled, hot and relentless. And I let them. Because some grief can't be hidden, some scars demand to be seen. I whispered, "Goodbye," and it felt like burying a part of myself. Nights were the hardest. I lay awake, the ceiling staring back, haunted by echoes of his voice. Every joke, every promise, every brother forever burned like acid in my chest. Emma checked on me often, her voice a fragile anchor. She said softly, "You'll heal, John. Time will change this pain." But I didn't believe her. Time doesn't heal scars, it only teaches us to carry them differently. I whispered to the dark, "I don't want to forget, but I can't keep remembering like this." The contradiction twisted in me, leaving me restless. The silence of the room became a battlefield, my mind a war zone of past and present colliding. I clenched my fists under the blanket, feeling the weight of what was stolen. Trust. Friendship. Innocence. And yet I still breathed, even if every breath hurt. That was survival. It ended, not with rage, but with quiet. I sat on my porch at dawn, the sky bruised pink and gray. Emma brought me coffee, placing it beside me without a word. I whispered to the horizon, "I lost my best friend the day I found out who he really was." The sentence hung heavy in the morning air, final and irreversible. Emma sat beside me, her silence a fragile comfort. Birds stirred in the trees, the world waking, but I felt no rebirth, only a scar. Betrayal had taken Mark, but it had also taken me, reshaping me into someone I didn't recognize. I breathed deep, steadying myself, because survival was all that remained. The final blow wasn't his betrayal, it was the realization that trust itself had died. I turned to Emma and said, "This is the scar I'll carry." The truth settled like stone, immovable.